All right. Welcome, anyone. I'm your state senator, Josh Becker, and I'm really excited to have this forum. I remember talking to my predecessor, Jerry Hill, during the campaign. I always said, Jerry, you have Java with Jerry. Well, Java with Josh would just, slide right in there. And he always got a chuckle out of it. And I talked to him the other day. I told him we're going to be doing these now. And of course, we'd love to be doing them in person, but due to COVID, we cannot. Which is unfortunate. On the other hand, hopefully it allows for more participation. We certainly got a lot of questions in, and some questions for me directly, some questions for Mayor Mark Nagales directly, and some that we'll both chime in on. We got a lot of questions, so we'll try to go a little longer than our half hour originally allotted and get as many questions answered as possible. So with that, I'm very honored to introduce the mayor of South San Francisco, my friend Mark Nagales.
Thank you, Senator. I'm very happy to be here. Thank you for inviting me, and I look forward to participating in this great forum. So welcome, everyone.
Well, great. Well, let's get right into it. And we mentioned...
Senator, I also want to introduce that my city manager, Mike Fattrell, is also joining us as well. So
excellent. Thank you. Mike, thank you for joining here as well. We'll, I'm sure, be kicking lots of questions to you for the specifics. But anyway, the first question is from Christy about the current county policy for sick days related to COVID. Mark, do you want to take that initially?
Yeah, I think this is a great question to ask in terms of what's happening in terms of COVID. I think it's all on our minds. The California COVID-19 supplemental paid sick leave law expired on September 30th. And since then, counties and cities have been enacting their own sick leave policy. I can just speak in terms of for the city of South San Francisco. We voluntarily extend COVID sick leave for our city employees through March 31st, 2022. I'm not quite sure what the county's doing, but I know that the state just came out recently with an update. And so I'm actually very interested to hear from the senator in terms of what's happening on the state level.
Well, good. Yes, very timely. We worked a lot on this the last couple of weeks, and we've come up with a proposal that will be retroactive to January 1st and go through September 30th. And again, we just want to make sure we're creating the right incentives. So I heard from teachers that said, hey, if I take a test, then if I test positive, then I have to stay school, and then I miss school, and I have to use all my sick leave, which I don't have anymore. So we want to create the right incentives. So we'll provide up to 40 hours for workers in the public and private sector, and an additional 40 hours of paid sick leave if worker tests positive for COVID. So that's what we're working on right now, and we have an agreement, and really excited about that, and we'll be getting more details out about that to folks soon.
Great.
Excellent. Well, number two, we had a question from Karen about want us to all focus on land use policy, specifically public-private partnerships for addressing our housing needs for the future. I thought I would use that as an opportunity to say, there are, one of the things that I've been very focused on is the fact that there's many shovel-ready affordable housing projects ready to go that couldn't get money from the state. So in this last budget process, I advocated very strongly for this, and it turns out we had $3.5 billion worth of projects ready to go that couldn't get funding. So we did $1.75 billion, about half of those projects to get funding. And we just got word, for example, that a project in the Middlefield Junction project in Redwood City, where the county bought the land in 2014, bought in Mercy Housing in 2018, was ready to go, 179 units, 155 income restricted, have been waiting for funding, and just found out this week on January 26th that they got $25.5 million to go ahead with that project. So that's the kind of thing that we're working on, and I hope will come out of this. Mayor, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, for us, for South San Francisco, we are very intently this year to bolster our housing policy and building affordable housing. I agree that public-private partnerships are a useful tool in addressing the housing crisis, and there is a housing crisis. That we work with our public-private partnerships, and actually we are doing that in South San Francisco, where potentially we're looking at maybe over 300 units of affordable housing in South San Francisco which is sorely needed in our region. So I think it's a great idea in terms of doing a public-private partnership.
Great. And thank you, Mayor, for being a leader there. Next question, by the way, around 10:20, we'll switch to questions in the live chat. So you can live ask questions, and we will get to hopefully most of those as well, or many of those. Deborah asks, I want to better understand the housing quotas, any consideration of resource constraints, i.e. water. And certainly water can be a constraint on growth. It is right now in Brisbane, where they've got a plan to double the size of the community. Everyone signed off on it, but they don't have the water. And I was just talking to Palo Alto, for example, has a proposal now to sell that water to Brisbane. That'll be on their agenda on Monday. So Brisbane's been going around looking for water. In most other cases, most cities have adequate water for development, as far as I know, but Brisbane is a good example of that, where gets in a larger question of using our water more efficiently. But yes, we have to make sure that those are done in tandem. Mayor Nagales, did you have a comment on that as well?
Yeah, I hear this question a lot too, in terms of the housing situation in South San Francisco. People have brought up, what about our water needs? And I think it's a great question. I think folks should know that every development in South San Francisco is required to provide a water study and gain certification from Cal Water. That's our water, that there's ample water available to support the new development, be residential or commercial. And I agree with this. I think we should talk about reuse as well. I think that's a big issue. And in South San Francisco, we're actually going to be finishing a construction in April on this underground water reuse facility, which will provide recycled water to watering parks and recharge our underground aquifers with approximately 80 million gallons per year. And we're the first city to do this in San Mateo County, and we actually got some funding from the state to do this. So thank you, Senator Becker, for for doing this. But no, we understand, and South San Francisco is taking the lead on this issue.
Well, thank you for taking that lead. That's really fantastic. It's great for people to know about that. And because we had another question about desalinization. And for people who were on my previous webinar, say on the water and the drought, we had Nusha Jami, who runs Water in the West at Stanford. And what she said is, yes, we have to focus on reuse and recycling first. She said there's a lot of fluff in our system. It's just a very one-way system, and it doesn't make sense to do desalinization and spend billions when we're just using water once. So we got to focus initially on water reuse and recycling. So terrific that South San Francisco is going to be leader there. That's really super, super exciting. I had a question from Anne. Over 1 million homes in California sit vacant. Talking about corporate, foreign ownership, and what can you do as a senator to stop investors from turning into ghost houses, et cetera, et cetera. There was a second part. Looks like it was a different question. Well, it's actually about equity between cities that have housed the job-rich communities but get none of the corporate benefits, which is sort of an interesting question, kind of separate from that, but maybe I'll try to address them both quickly. I do want to say my colleague Nancy Skinner did author a bill, and we looked into this in 2018, to allow local governments to levy fines against corporate and other owners who leave homes vacant for more than 3 months. So this law just took effect January 1st of this year. January 1st of last year. So now we'll be working with locals to try to get more uptake of this. I am supportive of local vacant land taxes generally, and we'll see if they have an impact. Oakland recently implemented one. The problem is, enforcement is difficult. So this is one in progress, but do want to let Ann know that we're working on that. And then in terms of the job balance, I think we do. I'm talking to my colleagues about this, try to think about that, because one city might get the benefit of that job revenue of a corporation being there, but then obviously the housing and the other is going to be spilling over into other local communities, the housing needs. So maybe something, a way to balance that is something that we're looking at. Okay, next question from Matthew. Matthew lives at Oyster Cove Marina. And the developer there is developing office, not residential space. And, he wanted us to just, I guess, be aware of that and make sure there's, protections for renters and such. Mayor Nagales, do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I think the issue is for the little boards at Oyster Point is that most of them own their boats. Well, what they're renting is the slip. It's state renter protections only. They don't apply to the rental of space for parking of a boat. However, if the person is not a boat owner but is renting the boat, it is a home, he may qualify for renter protections. I'm not quite sure. My suggestion is if they should reach out to the core service agency, like the YMCA or to the Legal Aid Society, to clarify that question. Because I think the issue is that do they qualify to receive the renter protections? Then it doesn't seem like they might, depending on if they own the boat or not. And so I think that's a question that maybe perhaps our core service agency that's helping a lot of folks apply for rent relief might be able to answer that question.
First of all, thank you for doing that and helping people apply for renter relief. And you mentioned is at www.ssf.net/renterhelp.
Yes, that's a great resource to our website that for folks who need assistance or just want to learn a little bit more in terms of renter protections that the state is providing during this pandemic, please visit our website. Thank you for providing that information, Senator.
Great. And hopefully this is a quick one from Dylan. When will the new City Hall/park be completed?
So this is really exciting. If you've driven down El Camino Real, you will see this huge structure that's being built, and that's our new community civic campus on the corner of Chestnut and El Camino Real. It's going to include a new library, a new parks and recreation center, and it's going to be completed this summer of 2023. So, Senator, when that ribbon cutting happens, expect an invitation, and we'll love to have you there.
I would love to be there. I would be honored to be there. Very exciting. Looking forward to it. There's a question in the chat about single payer healthcare pending, and also a question from Linda. What is the likelihood of it passing? If it does, is the governor going to sign it? I am a proud co-sponsor. Without getting into a very long discussion of this, if you look at health systems around the world, we're basically the only one health system that we have where we have for-profit health insurance, in such a way that we have all these disputes with our insurance companies, and we waste many of our healthcare dollars on that, arguing what should be covered, what not covered. And so I think we need to move in the direction of the rest of the world. And whether it's single payer or multi-payer, I think that can be disputed, but this is a proposal for single payer that I'm co-sponsoring. It has made more progress than it did last year. In this Jan term, we can move things that didn't pass last year just in January. And it passed through two important House committees now in the State Assembly, and will now be going to the floor of the State Assembly. So unfortunately, there's a lot of open seats, and not meaning that a number of people have resigned, and just seats that have not been filled, like David Chu's seat in San Francisco. And so it's going to maybe a struggle to get it out of the floor, but that's what we're working on right now. So stay tuned. It's going to be an exciting week next week. But we've gotten further than it ever has before. And I look forward to continue to work on improving our healthcare system and getting us in line with the rest of the world. Irene asks about recent increase of window breaking or car break-ins around Orange Park neighborhood. What is the city's response? And also need for pedestrian crossing on El Camino to have sound and speed for pedestrians with disabilities, since that's a busy crosswalk walk, about that one in particular. I'll kick it over to Mayor Nagales. I will say that a lot of our cities are struggling with this, and I convened a roundtable with some of our police chiefs who don't feel that they have the tools really to sort of handle this. And so now we're working, why is that? What can we do to work with them? Because I do hear this over, we see it next door with a lot of break-ins and car windows. And I do believe we got to make sure that our police feel empowered to do something about it. But with that, let me turn over to you, Mayor Nagales.
No, I appreciate that, Senator, and thank you to the person that submitted that question. As your mayor, and also I'm pretty sure the members of my city council are on here too. Your safety is our number one priority. That will always be our number one priority in terms of what's happening in our city. And we get the police reports, and we see the uptick in terms of these smash and grabs, and that's something that's been concerning to the city council. And actually, one of the things we're potentially looking at is an automatic license plate reader, potentially putting it on the freeways to come freeway entrances. This would allow for a car to pass through the camera to alert our police department if that car is a suspicious car that might have been involved in an illegal activity. And actually, cities around South San Francisco, like Daly City, Colma, San Bruno, along some other cities, actually already have this technology. And in a recent event, we were alerted by when a car passed through, I believe, the city of San Bruno, that there was a car that was potentially involved in a shooting in Sacramento. Our police department was actually alerted, and due to an investigation, when we were able to arrest that individual, and that is now going forward in terms of the court trial. So that's one way of doing this in terms of potentially stopping these smash and grabs. So that's actually an issue that we're going to take up at our next city council. So if individuals are interested in learning more about that, or potentially providing public comment, please do so at our next city council.
That's great. And again, I want to commend you and your colleagues for adopting innovative solutions like that one that you mentioned, like in the water situation that we just discussed, and in universal basic income, where you've been a leader and trying, we got to try things, and particularly in poverty alleviation, we got to try things, see if they work, and you're doing it, which is just fantastic. I couldn't be more excited about some of those efforts. Christina asked, what changes would you like to see in law enforcement for San Mateo County? And I mentioned that I'm supportive of the Fixin' San Mateo County proposal. This is actually kind of came out of some state law that we did to help enable these more of these citizens oversight boards. And so this proposal for Citizens Oversight Committee for the San Mateo County Sheriff. And then also very proud to work with Paul Bocanegra and others on the juvenile justice system, and was able to write into the board of supervisors and in support of Paul and his efforts there. So a lot to do, and the Fixin' San Mateo County proposal, I think, is an important part of it. Mayor Nagales, you had a thought there too, I believe?
Yeah, this is a topic we've been talking about in South San Francisco, and we're actually part of a pilot program with 3 other cities in San Mateo County, where we've hired a mental health clinician and attached that to our police department. It's a way to work with our residents who are experiencing a mental health crisis. It's moving away from the kind of a police-only response in those crises, where we're looking for a way to provide a more positive way to conduct emergency responses in San Mateo County. And so we're hoping to continue this after the pilot program, but just reading from the police reports, it's been a successful program so far. And so I'm very proud that this is something that we're doing to help de-escalate a lot of things that are happening in terms of individuals experiencing a mental health crisis. So
excellent, very practical. I think people would be really excited to hear that. Practical response. People keep talking about this, but you're doing it again, which is great. John asked about desalinization. I addressed that earlier. I did want to, there was a noise abatement question about SFO, and I did want, you had a concrete response there with some stuff that you're doing. Maybe you could answer that one quickly, Mayor Nagales.
Yeah, so we sorry. We actually have the SFO has a noise insulation program, which provides acoustic treatment to eligible properties inside a specific aircraft noise impact area. The acoustic treatment is offered free of charge to eligible property owners. It's a cost paid through the SFO. My suggestion is to call what's called the Aircraft Noise Insulation Office, and their phone number is 650-827-3900, or visit www.flysfo.com to learn a little bit more about it.
Okay. Good. Thank you for that very specific advice. I just want to answer two others quickly, and then we'll turn to the live chat. So Daniel wrote in about broadband. We need to have internet connection for everyone. We put one of the things I was just so proud of last year, we put $5.5 billion in for broadband, but it's one thing to allocate the money. The other question is, are you doing it right? And I'm proud to say, under the leadership of my colleague, Lena Gonzalez from Long Beach, who's just fantastic. She's doing an incredible job on broadband, and we're doing it the right way, which is very hard to do because there's a lot of corporate interests that don't want you to do it the right way. But proud to say we're doing it the right way, and stay tuned. But I'm working actively on that. In fact, I've got a call on Monday to make sure that we're implementing and that money is used wisely. Everyone, including folks on the coast here, where we have major connection issues. Lisa asks, a mom of two with autism, find it hard to find an adult home with them. Just read a big article in one of the papers about this. My brother-in-law is autistic, and I get this question as well, or I understand it. I just say, let's just say, Lisa, I just wanted to let you know that I hear you, and I asked you to reach out to our office. Saul and our team, is looking into it and may be able to provide some assistance. So please just reach out to our team directly, or we'll follow up with you after this call. And then one quickly, processing times for I-131 forms are currently over 1 year. This could trap my fiance for a very long time. This is a federal issue, I just wanted to note. And if you could get in touch with Congresswoman Spear, her number is 650-342-0300, 650-342-0300. We try to coordinate with our federal counterparts, but this is really a federal issue. So please reach out, and hopefully, I'm sure her office will be helpful. We're going to turn to the live chat now, there's a question about, can we get fired for too many sick days? It's possible to, for overuse of sick time if the employee doesn't have, but that's exactly why we're putting this in place with the state right now, to make sure that we extend this, especially with COVID. We want people to be incented to test and to stay home. If they do test positive for a sufficient period of time, they may need quarantine for 10 days. I think now it's 5 days is sort of the official, official advice. So that's why we're working on that, Bianca. Let's see. Nicholas asked, please explain what is affordable housing, lower quality of sold below market. I wouldn't say lower quality. It's just that there's different thresholds. There's area median income, 80% of area median income, and then 50% of area income. So we now have, Mayor Nagales, I think South San Francisco does have inclusionary zoning now for new developments. Is that right?
We do. Our housing inclusion policy is actually at 15%. So any new development that is being done in South San Francisco, the developer has to provide 15% affordable. And how we break that up is we do 10% very low and then 5% low. And like you said, it is based upon average median income. And in San Mateo County, the average median income is $149,000. And so if you look for a family of four who are in the kind of the 80% very low category, if you're a family of four and making less than $146,000, you're considered at the 80% of the average median income. And I know for a lot of families in South San Francisco, they fit that category.
Yeah. Great to hear. Al asked about higher crime rates, homelessness, drug needles, human waste, prisoners being released, the break-ins. I should say I hear you, Al. I mean, we have to do a better job. And especially when I read Heather Knight's article this week, just another heartbreaking story of ultimately overdose in San Francisco. We need to be doing better. The governor put about $350 million, and there's legislation I'm working on with Nancy Skinner around the retail break-ins to make it harder to sell that stuff online. Pawn shops, for example, are extremely regulated, but online sellers are not. And so it makes it a really easy way for criminals to resell stuff. So we're working on that. The other piece was really around a ballot initiative around the thresholds. And other states, even like Texas, Mississippi, have much higher thresholds. So I don't think it's that directly. But as I said earlier, we do want to make sure that police feel like they actually have the tools in place to address what's happening. And so I am working on that. And just what I hear you, we have to be doing a better job. It's not, for people living on the streets, it's not healthy for them. It's not healthy for our communities. And we have to be doing better. So we're going to put a lot of money into mental health beds. The governor addressed conservatorship in his State of the State. So we got a lot of work to do this year. We put $14 billion for homelessness. Again, it's great. It's a massive amount of money. We have to make sure it's used wisely. So thank you for asking that question. This is from Paul Bocanegra, who I mentioned earlier. He's on here. The Juvenile Justice Delinquency Prevention Commission just passed a resolution taking a formal stance against placing youth into school to prison pipeline. This came in as the DA's office initiated transfer hearings for 3 children in the last 6 months. What more can we do to disrupt the school to prison pipeline and stop the aggressive prosecutions of youth of color from underserved communities in the county? As I mentioned earlier, I'm extremely supportive of this effort. I wrote into the Board of Supervisors. I know we've gotten some good support there. And we will continue to work with the Department of Justice staff at the state level, as well as I will continue to advocate at the county level for this and to make sure and to, again, to continue to take a strong stance from our office against placing youth into this pipeline. Let's see. Karen had a question here, which I believe we answered. Can we, well, it's like nuance. Can we get into a conversation regarding having potential workforce for housing for big commercial projects? Example, the Salesforce Tower brings 10,000 people per day. Imagine if we had a few floors of housing in that building. It would help alleviate vehicle miles travel. It's interesting. We had 2 big bills last year around conversion of commercial space into housing. And they both, I think, got stalled for various reasons. So we'll continue to work on these. But this is actually an idea of putting housing into some of these big commercial projects. And again, I'm very supportive of that. I mean, there are some efforts now to have real mixed use where you've got housing and workforce right there. There's some major ones going on in Moffett Field and in Mountain View, the redevelopment of the Bayshore. So good point, Karen, and we will continue to work on this again. We have to be creative because to your point, if we had 10,000 jobs, we built 2,000 units of housing and then end 10,000 jobs, we're not helping to move the ball forward.
Yeah. Senator, if I can jump into that too, I think that's a great question. For us in South San Francisco, we're the biotech capital of the world, and so we understand that in terms of the people that live and work here, that's a big issue because people are traveling potentially an hour and a half, 2 hours to get from their work to home and back. But now most folks are telecommuting, but pre-pandemic, this was a big issue. And I've had this conversation with Genentech, which is one of our big biotech companies. And I've talked about how we believe, at least I believe, that they need to be part of this conversation. And Genentech actually stepped up and provided about $31 million for affordable housing. And $1 million of that actually is going to our ADU programs, where individuals who are interested in building an ADU can learn about it. So this is kind of like, as Karen mentioned, it's about that partnership, the public-private partnership, to make sure that we can find solutions to our housing problems. So I just wanted to mention that, Senator. Yeah,
good. Well, good. Thanks again for the creativity that you're showing there. And I've also had a conversation with head of Genentech about housing and transportation. One of the legislation that I'll be working on this year is around our transit systems. You may know we have 27 overlapping transit agencies, and so we need better coordination. And one of the bills, that I'll be doing this year is around fare integration for our transit systems. So, for my legislative package that I continue to work on, both focus on really two things: quality of life issues here on the peninsula, around transportation, around housing, around crime, and some of the issues that we've already discussed here today. And then secondly, bigger picture issues like climate change and making sure that California is a leader for the nation and really for the world, both in not, of course, just new technology around climate, but in policies that are going to let us really, truly move the needle. So continue to focus on both of these issues. Two other maybe quick things, and then we'll wrap up because I know we're hitting our time. Johanna writes about our Juvenile Justice Commission. Would actually like to invite South San Francisco residents to attend our meetings. The commission has identified South San Francisco as one of the 5 cities we are focusing our juvenile justice and delinquency prevention efforts on. We meet the last Tuesday of the month on Zoom at 5:15 p.m. So, Joanna, maybe you could put in the chat for us. I assume if people just Google the Juvenile Justice Commission of San Mateo County, I assume they can find that information about how to sign up. If you could let us know. But I do appreciate you writing in, since that's an issue. BW writes, police officers should really use these for emergency and not for mental health issues. Doctors and police working together. Again, I think, as mentioned, there'll be a number of bills this year around mental health. And then again, Mayor Nagales, you mentioned that innovative program that you're doing to provide health workers. Tell us again, this was health workers.
It's a mental health commission that we've hired. It's part of the county program that we, along with 3 other cities, have hired a mental health commission, and it's assigned with a police officer. So they go out and assess the situation, and they provide professional assistance in terms of a mental health crisis to try to de-escalate, and sometimes also ask that the individual be transported to the hospital for emergency assistance. So it's a way to try to de-escalate a lot of things where potentially a situation could get a little tricky depending on what's going on. So we wanted to see that other ways to help our residents and try to de-escalate the situation. And that's something that we're very, very proud of. So thank you for asking that question. And thank you, Senator, for bringing it up again.
Yeah, great. James asked again about AB 1400. I answered that earlier. I'm doing everything I can to support my colleague Ashkara. We're working hard on it, and we'll see what happens on Monday and this week. So with that, we're about 5 minutes over. I think, I just wanted to provide some final thoughts and just say that I really appreciate everyone reaching out. A couple of people called up with very specific South San Francisco questions. We will certainly refer them to Mayor Nagales and Mike Petrell. And I just want to say, again, 2 things. One is that I appreciate everyone who wrote in and is here with us live today. We also make this recording available. But, it's a lot of the same questions that I get other places. So I'm really glad. And it's, again, good feedback for me. Questions around housing, questions around transportation, questions around crime, questions around criminal justice and our juvenile justice system. Really great to hear from people directly, their concerns. And I want to thank again Mayor Nagales for joining. And it's great to hear. We live in an area. I represent 23 or so cities, and that provides us really a ripe potential for experimentation and see what works, and then we can I can help do that statewide. And we're seeing that in climate and clean energy as well, where our cities have led the way with, say, all electric new construction, other things that help me up at the state level to advocate for those policies. So great to hear the work that you're doing around water, around mental health and our criminal justice system, around universal basic income. And I really appreciate you and your colleagues for their leadership. Would you like to have any final thoughts?
Yes, thank you, Senator. Again, thank you for inviting myself to participate. I do want to give a plug to our city in terms of what we're doing in terms of COVID testing. We've all heard the demand for testing because of the new variant. I want to inform the senator and the audience that South San Francisco has opened a major COVID testing site at 616 Linden Avenue. This is a free PCR testing site. It's open from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Saturday. The site will be able to conduct up to 2,000 tests daily. And we also recently just opened a second site in partnership with the county at Malderosa Church, which is at 307 Willow Avenue. The site is a mobile testing clinic on Mondays from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. And so I wanted to make sure that I let the audience know. So with that, Senator, I just want to again say thank you to you for hosting this, and thank you to the audience for asking a lot of great questions. And if there's anything we can do, Senator, to help you in terms of your legislative package, please don't hesitate to let us know.
Believe me, I will not hesitate. I will not hesitate. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mike. Thanks to everyone who wrote in and with questions and participated. And hopefully we'll do these in person again sometime in the future. Thank you all.
Thank you.